abantu babuzaabuza abantu regarding IFRS. IFRS e-receipting. So nange nenzija nkakasa ensome maze okusoma ngenda genda ngamba abantu baffe nti owaayi ate munnaye bino ebintu bya bwereere era omuntu yenna ali mu nnaka bw'ali luddawa asobola okujja URN emusomesa n'asobola okulongosa bizinensi ye mu ngeri ng'eyo. So omuntu yenna ali eyali.
Good morning, our dear viewers. Welcome to URA TV. This is Customs 101 webinar. My name is Nicholas Aruho and I will be your host today. Today we are looking at valuation of imported goods at the IM7 regime, and I have experts from the Customs department. I will introduce them, starting from my extreme left. I have Mr. Emmanuel Uponja, who is the supervisor for the Document Processing Center. I have Madame Fiona Tubeine, who is the manager for warehousing. And on my immediate right, I have Mr. Simon Esonget, who is the manager for the Document Processing Center for DPC. Thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you so much for tuning in once more. Like I said, we are looking at valuation of imported goods at the IM7 regime, and we shall be looking at why we are doing so and the intended benefits. Feel free to send in your questions as we go along. We shall go through all your questions and give you appropriate answers. Go to the chats and send in your questions, or wherever you're accessing us from. If it's on social media, feel free to send in your questions using all the channels. We shall receive them and give you responses. I will begin with you, Mr. Uponja. We are talking about valuation of imported goods at IM7. Kindly tell us, help the viewers understand what does valuation mean and what does the IM7 regime mean. Over to you, Mr. Uponja.
Thank you, Nicholas. Good morning, viewers. My name is Emmanuel Uponja, Supervisor Customs, currently deployed at Document Processing Center. Valuation means the process of determining the customs value of imported goods. The customs value of imported goods. And the customs value of imported goods is the price actual paid or payable for goods when sold for export at the partner state. So the process of determining that value of the imported goods is the valuation. That we call valuation. How do you, because valuation, that value is a key aspect in determining the taxes payable, the rate the tax will pay on the goods. So for you to know the tax you are going to pay, you must have the value of the goods. One of the determinants of the duty payable at customs. The second question is warehousing regime. This is a technical word. It's a customs terminology. First of all, it's a procedure of declaring goods on a prescribed form. That's the regime, what we call the warehousing regime, IM7. That you have goods that you have imported, and these goods are not yet due to pay taxes. I need to deposit them with in customs bonded warehousing, and thereafter we look at other processes to follow, pending other customs clearance process. So that is the form we use to clear that good is the IM7 form, and it's done on a C17A, the single administrative document, which we normally abbreviate as SAD. So that is the regime. So now, valuation of goods at IM7. We are now valuing these goods when they are under warehousing regime, meaning the taxes are not yet paid, pending other customs clearance process to know the value. What are the value of these goods that we are warehousing? How do we get to the value of the goods in the bond? that is valuing these goods at warehousing. That is at warehousing regime, what we call IM7 regime. That is a part of the introduction on the valuation and IM7 regime.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Mr. Uponja, for enlightening us about the IM7 regime and the valuation. If you could also briefly tell us how DPC is currently valuing goods. How are you currently managing valuation of goods at the Document Processing Center?
Thank you, Nicholas. We are valuing goods. One, we all know that we are operating under a single customs territory clearance framework. That's SCT, where goods destined to Uganda are declared at the port of entry, either port of Mombasa or Dar es Salaam, before destined to Uganda. So at the port, there are two regimes are used. The IM4, that is for the home consumption, where the taxpayer needs to declare these goods to URA, to customs system, and pay taxes. That is on IM4. The second option is WT8, the warehousing transfer regime, where the clients are declaring goods and transferring these goods from the port to the bonded warehouses. Now, both of these cases, we are stating the value of these goods. We are valuing the goods at IM4, where tax are already paid. So the client submits the document to the customs system, and we ascertain the value of the goods, and we process that at IM4. The second one is on WT8. Though we not less much details on the declaration because we don't have the list of the goods on the WT8, we still process based on what we submit at URA, what submit are the documents. So we value the goods based on your submission and allow the good to move from the ports of entry to the bonded warehouses. And we wait for the other process to follow. The warehousing, the auto conversion of the T1 to IM7, then we value. So currently we are valuing the goods when they fill at the port on IM4, port of Mombasa, port of Dar es Salaam, and also we also have other stations who declare directly IM4 without going through the warehousing regime, like Entebbe, the national airport. So the goods received at the port of Entebbe, we value them at the IM4 directly, because those will not go through warehousing. So we have both regimes, WT8 and the IM4, for valuing where goods are valued at the port, whether at Entebbe port, so at IM4. So those are the two scenarios where DPC is currently looking at, where we are valuing our goods that are imported.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Mr. Uponja, for that elaborate explanation. I will now come to Madam Fiona, who is the manager for warehousing. You manage the warehousing function. Kindly tell us about the warehousing process, briefly, how the warehousing process is managed when these goods are imported.
Thank you, our moderator. A very good morning, our viewers and listeners. My name, as already mentioned, is Fiona Tubeine. I'm the manager for warehousing. Now, how are goods managed at warehousing, or how does it all start? Allow us to take an example of declaration at the port of Mombasa. At Mombasa, as already mentioned by my colleague, there is a declaration called warehouse transfer, where we use a WT8, and these goods are declared at that point, destined to a particular warehouse of choice. It may be a motor vehicle warehouse, it may be a factory warehouse, it may be a public warehouse for general goods. But at that point, we expect the client to pick whichever warehouse of choice they want to bring those goods. That WT8 will go through an assessment process, and then a T1 will be made to bond those goods using an RCTG to move them from the port of Mombasa inland in Uganda to whichever bonded warehouse the client will have chosen. At arrival at this destination warehouse, the goods go through an arrival process, or the transactions go through an arrival process, where we have a bonded operator doing an arrival in the system, and then customs goes ahead, receives cargo as well, validates, and takes it through an auto conversion process. Now, at auto conversion, two things happen. We have a retirement of the RCTG, which is a transit bond from the Port of Mombasa. And then we have now we pick a new bond, which is a warehouse bond called a CB6, to now cover these goods while they are at this bonded warehouse. Now, auto conversion will now give us our new document called an IM7. My colleague has already hinted to it, which is now the warehousing regime. Now, once these goods have been auto-converted, which is the expectation for all goods entering a bonded warehouse, unless there is an already exception given prior formally, all goods automatically are supposed to be auto-converted. Then we take them through an examination process. Now, goods are verified before we can send them to DPC to now value them, which my colleague was already mentioning about valuation of goods at IM7. So basically, we are talking of declare at the port, use a WT8, move cargo, reach the bond. We go through an arrival process, which includes auto conversion to this so-called warehousing regime. We verify you, confirm quantities, and then we do a system action called reroute yellow that allows us now to send your declaration to DPC for valuation. Now, the other processes will come later after they've valued, which we call management of goods under warehousing regime. Because under management of those goods, we have different actions that happen. We have transfer of ownership. A client is free to be able to change their ownership from themselves to another client. A client is free to repackage their goods, for example, within the bonded warehouse under management of goods. The client is free to re-export those goods to another destination if they find market in another country. And the client is also free to pay taxes. They can pay in whole or pay in part lots. So all those are what is available for you once you say you have put your goods under warehousing regime. I think in brief, that's warehousing for the knowledge of our clients. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Madam Fiona. Indeed, warehousing is a very important function in the process of clearing imported goods. Thank you so much for that explanation. If you could also tell us some of the challenges, are there any challenges you faced in the management of this cargo entered for warehousing, such that our clients can probably see where they need to improve? Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Nicholas. In regard to challenges, I'll start with the first one, which is related to verification, because this is where goods are now declared. Remember, we have allowed you to declare at the port. You've come into the bond and there is an auto conversion. Examination is going to happen. It's at that point that challenges which are there start coming up to do with declaration. Some are related to misdeclaration, others are related to under-declaration, goods being called one thing and yet it's another. So the first challenge we get is at that examination stage. Issues of quantity, goods being declared lower than what they actually is, weights being lower than what they actually is. So our first challenge is declaration. And of course, when we encounter any declaration challenges, there is an offense process or an offense procedure that we carry on to be able to manage any offenses that arise from declaration. Now, apart from declaration, another challenge is accountability. Accountability is when we have actually counted these goods and there are 10 TVs and we need them to remain 10 intact as they have been warehoused. Now, over time, Over time, because warehousing takes a couple of months, 6 to maximum 9, over time, goods may start changing, and we expect that those goods should not change. They should remain as we have warehoused them, and therefore that's where accountability becomes very critical, and many times we find those challenges popping up that are related to accountability. The third one is the valuation, and that's why we are here this morning, and that's why the new procedure or process of valuing accurately at IM7 came up. So valuation is very critical to be able to know that what we have stored is actually the correct value. So if we talk about those television sets, we should have counted them, described them properly, and also valued them properly. So valuation is another challenge, but which we are now dealing with, and that's the reason we are here to further discuss and have this conversation on the same matter. Another challenge is related to units. Units get paid for in the bonded warehouses. However, they are not exited for registration. That's a challenge that we are still grappling with. And I believe we need to find a solution around it. And now we are going digital with number plates. So it's an area that is still a challenge under the warehousing regime that needs to be addressed as we move forward, even in this new calendar year. Lastly, but not the least, and not that we've exhausted all, another challenge is overstay of goods, which we commonly call want of entry. Goods are supposed to stay in a bonded warehouse for a particular period of time. And we expect that any declarations or any changes, as I had already mentioned, under management of goods warehoused, you are free to do everything, but within the allocated time. If it's 6 months, it's 6 months. If it's 9, it is 9 maximum. So we usually get a challenge of those goods overstaying, and therefore we transfer them under want of entry for disposal, which is also another process of customs, but we would love that clients clear their goods in time. So goods overstaying remains a challenge that we are grappling with, and would encourage our clients to always plan out their clearances very well, so we don't have any goods overstaying and overshooting their stay in a bonded warehouse. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much. Thank you so much, Madam Fiona Tureine, the manager in charge of warehousing. Let me now come to DPC. Mr. Simon Esunget, you are the manager in charge of DPC, in charge of processing all the transactions in the whole country and beyond. Now, clients are used to valuation being done majorly on IM4. Why do you want to value at IM7, Mr. Esunget?
Okay, thank you very much, Bwana Nicholas, and our viewers out there. Again, happy New Year to all of you, and it's a pleasure to be here again discussing issues that matter to all of us. Today we are focusing on valuation of cargo under the IM7 regime, or the warehousing regime. Yes, why now have we decided that determination of value for imported goods should be concluded while these goods are still at the warehouse? I want to begin with the background, a little background, okay? Some of the partners out there, like the clearing fraternity, may recall that around 2023, we had attempted to actually have a conclusion of valuation aspects at the first point of declaration of cargo into customs. And that was that when you declare goods, say for warehousing under WT8 regime, our idea was that we would conclude all aspects of valuation at that point. And then when that cargo arrives at the named bonded warehouse, all the information from that WT8 would automatically transfer into the IM7 in a process called auto-conversion. Now, we found a limitation in that we were not having full details as to the nature of the goods that are actually in that box or that container. So valuation is based on the full details of the product being valued. Now, once we had that limitation, because we are not verifying goods physically at the port of Mombasa or Dar es Salaam, except for motor vehicles. So it was not possible for us to have accurate valuation done on those goods at the stage of WT8 or declaration for transit from the port to the bonded warehouses in Uganda. So now management reviewed this effort and noticed that it is a requirement of the law that once goods are received in a bonded warehouse, those goods are physically examined before they are entered into the warehouse stores. Now, at that point, we have full particulars of this cargo to ensure appropriate and accurate valuation can be done. So I would like to say that it is now something that has become critical both for the customs but also for the taxpayer out there and also for the clearing fraternity out there, that valuation of goods at IM7 has a lot of benefits for both the people who are involved in the clearance of this cargo. And management believes that in an effort to enhance service delivery, this is an area we should focus as far as this financial year is concerned. We will definitely carry out an evaluation to see how far we have come with this initiative. So that's basically why we have now picked on valuation of these goods to be concluded at the point when this cargo is still at the bonded warehouse. The taxpayer is not desperate for these goods to get out, but we also have full details of this cargo. This cargo is offloaded from the container, is in the bonded warehouse. If the officer in the document processing center or the DPC is asking about the measurement of these goods, then the measurement can be done at the warehouse where this good is for the officer at document processing center to be able to accurately append appropriate values that replicate with that particular product. So that is why we are focusing on this area at this particular time. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Mr. Esunget. Indeed, I see why you would want to do valuation at IM7. And I want actually to stay with you, and the viewers may want to know what are the benefits if I'm listening in and I'm a clearing agent,
Yes,
or I'm an importer.
yes.
When you value at IM7, well, how do I benefit?
Yes. Thank you very much. And like I mentioned earlier on, that this is the area that we are paying much attention to. And again, like I mentioned, that both our partners, the importers, the clearing fraternity, the exporters, and everyone involved in the chain. Valuation of goods at IM7 comes with a lot of benefits. For the taxpayer out there, you will notice that we will be able to cut one stage of valuation of cargo. Emma earlier on mentioned that we have been valuing these goods at a WT8. Again, these goods come to the warehouse. We still value these goods. That's another stage, okay? And then when you are ex-warehousing that cargo, again, it comes back to DPC. That's a third stage. Remember, the goods have not changed. We are talking about the same goods. So why should these goods be subjected to 3 stages of valuation, yet the goods have not changed? Now, when we cut down on the stages of valuation, it goes without saying that we are cutting on the time it takes to clear the goods, but also cutting the time it takes to clear goods translates into a reduction of cost, which is very critical for everybody who is involved in the business. The second very important aspect is that for a taxpayer, okay, you will now be able to know accurately before the time you want to pay taxes for these goods. You are able to know that these goods are going to pay this amount of taxes, because we have already concluded aspect of value, and you are able to accurately determine and know precisely how much taxes you'll be able to pay at the end of the day. That has a lot of other hidden advantages. One of them, you can now do your what we call retail price structuring before even you have removed these goods from the bonded warehouse. You can also, for those who pay their taxes using loans, it is easier for you to go to the bank and say, I want this amount of loan in order to clear my taxes and get my goods into the market. So you can see what other advantages that come with the accurately determining the value of, because you are sure that this tax is not going to change again at another stage. The other aspect, obviously, that comes with this is that customs will have accurate detail, including the value and the accurate BIF or bond in force when these goods are kept in the bonded warehouse. Should there be a reason for one, maybe a situation that leads to these goods disappearing from the bonded warehouse, then appropriate penalty to bond will be executed at that point. Now, the other aspect that comes with the valuation of cargo at the IM7, okay, is that both the taxpayer, the agent, and customs are able to have sufficient time to truly determine the value of these goods. There is sufficient time for you to appeal, sufficient time for customs to review your appeal, sufficient time to provide you accurate value of these goods, and you realize that at the end of the day, everyone in the chain is actually benefiting. And of course, we as customs, we believe that the more we are able to clear your cargo faster, the more you reach the market, and the more you sell, the more you are able to trade more, and the more taxes that will come to the coffers of government. So we believe that is the area for us to continue pursuing and improve so that customs work is transparently done. The taxpayer is able to know how his taxes were determined, and we will be able to talk about the same goods without baptizing them. You have, for you are telling customs that me, I have children's clothes, but these clothes are in the bonded warehouse. So we can all go to the bonded warehouse and see these clothes really for children or for adults. Should there be a need for us to go to the laboratory to determine a particular component of this product for purpose of valuation, we have sufficient time to draw a sample, take the laboratory, come up with the results so that we can determine the value of your goods as transparently as possible, that satisfies everybody, both government and you, the taxpayer. So those are some of the advantages that come with this new initiative that we are undertaking.
Oh, thank you so much. Thank you so much indeed, Mr. Simon, the manager for DPC, for taking us through the benefits of valuing at IM7. Viewers, thank you so much once more for tuning in. This is still Customs 101 webinar, and we are looking at valuation of imported goods at IM7. Feel free to continue sending in your questions. We thank you for tuning in. Go to the chat and send in your questions. The experts here are going to answer all of them. We thank you for tuning in. I can see some who are giving us feedback. Mr. Sentongo Phil, you are tuning in from Nakatongora. Thank you so much. I can see Rondeza Minepsati. You are saying it's a good intervention. Thank you so much for tuning in. And the questions are going to be handled shortly. Now, I want to come, before I leave you, Mr. Esengate.
Yes.
Since now you are valuing at IM7, what happens to the IM4? Does it mean when I lodge my IM4, you won't query it? Does it mean the IM4 is no longer needed? What happens to the IM4 regime?
Thank you very much. Again, like I mentioned earlier, that this purpose, the focus of valuing goods at IM7, we want to cut on the number of stages involved in determination of the value of imported goods, and that should translate into reduced time it takes for taxpayers to clear their goods through customs. Now that we are focusing on valuing these goods at IM7, what happens at IM4? I want to assure you, the traders and our listeners out there, that the intended focus is that we should not be able to repeat this process at IM4. Now, the bigger picture, the future, what we want is that once you declare IM4, from the goods that were initially valued at IM7, we are now having conversation about enhancing our system to be able to auto-release your consignment without returning to DPC. Now, that's the conversation we have started. In the meantime, these consignments will continue to come to DPC, but we are not going to continue querying these consignments at IM4. we will be able to replicate the decision which was made at IM7 and replicate it at IM4. For the taxpayers who declare the value which was initially agreed at IM7, we will just release those consignments straight away from level 1 without query. For those taxpayers who depart from the value which was agreed upon at IM7, those are the areas that, as we shall show you later on in this show, those are the areas we will continue to ask or to query for purposes of amending those declarations. So yes, at the IM4 for goods that were warehoused, we are not going to be repeating the valuation process. Instead, the actions that will be undertaken from DPC will be to replicate the decision taken from IM7 on the IM4. So we shall be dog checking the IM4s with a view and in comparison with the decision which was taken at IM7. And that will be our focus. Where there is a departure, those are the areas we shall be focusing on to ensure that we correct that anomaly.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much once more. And indeed, you've done very well to show us the benefits of valuing goods at IM7 and what happens to other regimes. So I would like now to briefly come back to Madam Fiona, the manager for warehousing. When we do this valuation at IM7, how does it help you in warehousing, in management of cargo? Over to you.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Nicholas. And our viewers, again, we appreciate that you're still with us in this conversation. Now, when goods are warehoused properly at IM7, then, like the word I've used, then we have proper or accurate value of the cargo we have stored. Because it's very important that I keep using the televisions. It's very important that if we are keeping those televisions, we are keeping them at their correct value. So if it's done well, as DPC is doing, then first benefit is that we'll store goods whose value is accurate, precise, and correct. Now, the same thing happens with the cargo volume. Our stocks will be accurate. We'll be able to determine at any given time, this is the volume that we have in the bonded warehouses, and it translates to this value. Because as customs, one of our core mandates is statistics, actually. So it's important that our statistics are accurate at all times. So other than volume and value, our BIF. BIF is the would-be tax, the bond in force. If we value properly, we will know the accurate tax we are meant to receive from these goods. Without a doubt, as Manager DPC has already said, without a doubt, somebody will come and freely take their TVs, give us that BIF that will have already predetermined at valuation stage, and then we'll be sure that if these TVs are 10 million, they will actually be 10 million without any challenge, unless probably we have issues of exchange rate and all that. But we expect that that should be the tax that we receive. Another benefit is quick clearance at IM4, and I think Manager DPC already hinted to it. If we have properly stored these goods, counted them, and valued them, then releasing them after tax payment is very quick and easy. Very, very quick and easy. We are very sure that somebody will declare his entry, and in a couple of hours will be able to exit and take goods into the market. And I think that's the greatest benefit there is in all this, especially to our clients out there, that as and when you're ready to take their goods, we already told you can take them even in part lots. So as and when you're ready to take that one TV or two, you are sure you'll be able to take it as quickly as possible, because the value was already predetermined and the taxes were already known. And then another critical one, which I have hinted on also, is statistics. We will now have accurate statistics. Very precise. If we are telling our supervisors, who is the Minister of Finance, that this is what we have in our bonded warehouses as URA, it will be accurate, it will be correct, it will be precise. It can be relied on that indeed we expect some trillions of money in this volume in these particular bonded warehouses, because we will have done a good thing from the start, which is counting, verifying properly, and valuing our goods as we store them into the warehouse. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Madam Fiona. Let me now go back to Mr. Uponja. Regarding valuation, sometimes you people in DPC give people very high values. So how are the dispute mechanisms conducted? If I don't agree with the values you've given me very high values, I feel that they are unfair. How do I go about it? Over to you, Mr. Uponja.
Thank you, Nicholas, and our viewers. The dispute mechanism in DPC is through an appeal process. It doesn't mean that all transactions handled in DPC that the values come from customs. That's as DPC who portion values to the client's goods. We had mentioned earlier, we have a transactional value. A transactional value method, that is the primary method of valuation of goods, which is the method 1. If the client has made a declaration and this PC is satisfied with the declaration in terms of value, in terms of classification and other aspects, and the DPC officer is satisfied, the transaction is passed. That means we are processing this declaration basing on what the client has submitted. Where there's a sort of some anomaly, DPC raises the query. The query can be in terms of value of the goods or classification or any other parameter on the side. This query is sent to the client through a SCADA system on the query module, and the client receives the query and gives response to DPC. If the officer is satisfied with the response from the client, the transaction is still passed. That means we shall release the entry. Now, the issue comes where there is a disagreement. I've given you a value, you have also maybe accepted it, we shall also process it. But where I give you a value and you are not satisfied, you lodge an appeal to manager DPC through an online platform, that is a URA touchpoint. You lodge an appeal against the decision of the officer. Could be value, could be HS code. Manager will assign an independent committee, it's appeals committee, that will handle the appeal, will provide response to appeal that was raised by the client. And the client will get feedback. Where the client is not satisfied with the appeals committee, they will lodge another appeal to assistant commissioner, and will also get feedback from the assistant commissioner. If they are satisfied with the decision of the assistant commissioner, they will use that decision to process the entry in DPC. Again, where they are not satisfied with the decision of the assistant commissioner, they lodge an appeal to commissioner customs. That is the appeal mechanism in DPC. So it all comes where there's where the client is not satisfied with the decision of the officer, manager, of AC, and appeals up to commissioner. That is the appeal mechanism in DPC.
Yeah, thank you so much. Thank you so much for that explanation. Indeed, I can see there is redress in case of any dispute. I want to first come back to the manager for DPC, Mr. Simon Esonget. There is an issue of consolidators and groupage cargo. When you value at IM7, at that point you are dealing with the consolidator.
Yeah.
At that point, the different importers have not yet appointed their own agents, and therefore the agent for the consolidator may accept values that the agent for the individual importers are not aware of. And indeed, I've already received 2 questions related to that. One from Rita from Shipax Africa Limited, and another one from David Waswa, who have tuned in regarding how you manage groupage cargo. How best are you going to deal with the evaluation of groupage cargo at IM7?
Thank you very much, Nicholas. Again, a pleasure to interact with our viewers out there. The issue on the table is evaluation of cargo under groupage. Groupage cargo means that the cargo that belongs to several importers is being imported in one container, okay, with the consolidator as the importer, okay? And we are going to demonstrate to you something briefly. But this groupage cargo, you as an importer, importing your cargo in a groupage, okay, does not mean that you should not appoint your own clearing agent. You are actually advised to appoint your own clearing agent to help you develop what we call a worksheet. That worksheet is what you will hand over to the consolidator who is bringing your cargo. Now, if you are 20 people in that container, the consolidator will receive 20 worksheets from 20 independent importers. And the consolidator will then declare that cargo based on those worksheets that each importer has handed over to the consolidator. Now, customs will value this consignment as a one consignment, and they will, throughout the process of determining the value of imported goods, be engaging with the consolidator. And our expectation is that the consolidator is able to relay the feedback from customs to the individual importers. Because when we are valuing these goods, we are looking at the goods, and these goods belong to person A. And we have queried the aspects relating to those particular goods that belong to person A. Now, the consolidator should be able to relay that message to that particular importer. And that importer provides the feedback to the consolidator, who then relays the same to DPC until the decision is made. Ladies and gentlemen, what is on the screen is an example of a bad worksheet. And for avoidance of doubt, that is some of the documents that are submitted in the name of consolidators. That this is a worksheet that a DPC officer should work with, okay? Because the cargo which is in that container belongs to several people, and that is the worksheet. Now, this is an example of a bad worksheet, and we felt that was very important to share with you that once you have your cargo as a consolidated cargo, okay, and this is the kind of worksheet that you are handing over to the consolidator, you are complicating both the work of the consolidator, customs, and yourself. Now, I want to show you an example of a good worksheet. Could you assist me with the example? Now, what you see on the screen there is an example of a good worksheet. It has the item number 1, it has the HSE code, it has the description, it has the quantity, it has the value. The only thing missing on this worksheet is the kilograms for that particular item. But it has the value in FOB, it has the value in CIF, and it has what we call the respective taxes for that particular product. Now, as you can see, each of the product has individual computations up to the how much taxes each of those products will be able to pay. Now, this is what every taxpayer, that person you have appointed as your clearing agent, should demand from the clearing agent, because you're paying our partner, the clearing agent, for this service. So they should be able to determine to you how much taxes you're going to pay per each of the products you have imported before even that information is submitted to URA. So that if you have 10 items in that container, you're able to know how much you are going to pay before even that information has been delivered to URA. So this is the worksheet we expect from each of the consolidated cargo consignees to be handed over to the consolidator. In the event of dispute with the consolidator, we expect the consolidator to produce this from taxpayer A, that this is what the taxpayer gave us. And we expect when we are querying that taxpayer to be able to say, the information the consolidator has given you is not what I gave the consolidator. This is what I gave the consolidator. Now, in so doing, we will be establishing a transparent environment for us to value these goods appropriately and determine fairly the value for each of the person in that consolidated container. So that at the end of the day, the consolidator will now transfer the cargo to the individual taxpayers with a correct value, which we shall not repeat the process when that individual taxpayer actually registers the IM4 to pay taxes for their own goods. Now, I want to illustrate something, the last slide. Now, this is an illustration that is the actual. These are some of the things that we receive in DPC. Remember, I mentioned that we should be able to cut down on the stages of valuation, whether you have come as a consolidator or you have come as a dependent taxpayer. You look on the right, there is the IM7 past value, which I have highlighted as $17,000, okay, and the BIF 55 million. But after passing, this entry went through the entire query process and appeals process until this was the value which was eventually agreed upon. At the point of declaring IM4, on the left, IM4 declared value, the client reduced from $17,000 to $1,500 and paid taxes of $1.9 million for a 1x40 container of assorted goods. Now, this is an example of what we do not want. For us to benefit from the initiative of valuing goods at IM7, you should be able to be transparent and honest. Because with this, the situation we are seeing at DPC that is taking us backwards is that clients do not want to be honest at a point of ex-warehousing, repeating the process on and on and on and on. And in fact, to illustrate further, you find if the consignment has got 15 items, okay? What will happen is that item 1 and item 2, you put the value which was passed at item 7. When you reach items 3 and 4, you reduce a little bit. But when you reach item 17, you actually now declare something totally different from what was initially agreed. Now that forces DPC to query you again, so has to push that entry to level 2, where an amendment will then be occasioned to replicate the value which was initially passed from IM7. We believe we can avoid this and be able to benefit from the intended benefits of this initiative that Customs has introduced. So for consolidators, considering the nature of their consignments, we have set a special arrangement within the DPC to ensure that we give them focus for faster clearance. We are working with the Uganda Cargo Consolidators Association Secretariat that they will identify these consignments after verification and communicate to us. And we will pull these consignments from the pool and give them attention because they have a lot of items and it's consolidated and we need to give it much attention. So we'll be working with the Secretariat of Uganda Cargo Consolidators Association to ensure that they give us feedback, and now we have these containers and we will be able to give them priority for quick processing. So briefly, that is how we are handling the consolidated consignment. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Mr. Esunget, for that detailed explanation. I believe our friends, the consolidators and the groupage clients should now be okay with that explanation. And I believe even our viewers, Rita and David, who asked I hope your issue has been resolved. And I see during your explanation, you also resolved the issue which was raised by Mr. Edakas Isito, who was asking why sometimes you query at IM4 what was valid at IM7. But from your explanation, I see that answer was provided. It's about at IM4 making sure that you go ahead with what was agreed at IM7. And now I will go to another viewer, and this question I will direct it to Madam Fiona. There is someone who is asking about T1 validation, and he says that it's URA officers who are supposed to validate T1s in warehouses, but when they don't do it, it's the clearing agents that are suspended. I don't know whether that is true. You will give him an answer, and I will combine that with another question from Andrew O'Wall, who is asking about SCT. He's asking if you re-export goods that are on IM7, you export them to Rwanda. At what point is the bond for the clearing agent retired? If someone has sent goods to Rwanda under SCT and they are going to be warehoused in Rwanda, you can first respond to those two.
Okay, thank you very much, Nicholas, and thank you, our viewers who have raised those two questions. I'll begin with the one of T1 validation. Yes, as rightly mentioned by the client, validation is done by customs officers because that is our function. That's really our activity and exclusively for us. The only thing the bond operator does is to do what we call an arrival action in ASCUDA. But then after that arrival action, validation is now done by the customs officer. And that is what now progresses to auto conversion of those goods into the IM7 regime. Now, I will expect that when every clearing firm should be able to track the work that they do at the different stages. Because if you've brought a consignment or a unit at a bonded warehouse, then the expectation is that you follow through so that you can ensure that your goods are actually validated and you have your IM7s in place. Because it's after that that we are even able to go ahead and do a verification of your cargo. So I want to encourage our team, because validation is meant to be done and it's done immediately on arrival. And we expect that whichever clearing agent is connected to that shipment, please follow through with that bonded warehouse. There are team leaders in those locations, and there are supervisors also as well. And we are also there at headquarters support. Please follow up on those shipments that have come. Make sure for you have received what you need to receive in terms of goods arrived, bond retired, and an IM7 in place. Otherwise, we can't say that T1 validation can be done by anybody else. No, that's just the work of a customs officer, and we are committed to do that and to do it on time as soon as the cargo arrives. Now, on re-export to Rwanda, now SCT consignments, these are transfers. If Rwanda is picking goods from a bonded warehouse in Kampala, that is a transfer. So we expect that these entries are done by Rwanda. So I'm not sure if I understood clearly the question of the client when they are saying that they actually bond that SCT entry of Rwanda, because the entry will have been made in Rwanda for it to be able to pick cargo in Uganda. And what we do in Uganda is to process a C2, which will allow the movement of that cargo to exit at Katuna or Mirama Hill as it goes to Rwanda. So the entry being done is in Rwanda, the bond being picked is in Rwanda. So maybe we may need to have that client connect with us even after this engagement so that we can give more clarity in case we have not understood that question from the client very, very well. But if the entry has been done in Rwanda, then we don't expect that he is the one bonding, because what we are doing is creating a C2 as Uganda. Yes, thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Madam Fiona. Mr. Eric Katamba has a question here, and I will direct it to Manager DPC. It revolves around delays, and I'm asking why all documents released at IM7 are being delayed, and where the IM4, I think part of that was answered, but he's also asking about PEV entries, on why you have to do document check for PEV entries, even when the declaration started with the verification findings. Yeah, I think you can respond.
Okay, thank you very much. Briefly, I think I will focus on the PEV because I had answered about why we still continue occasionally to query IM4s, and I did demonstrate physically the kind of information that is submitted at X warehousing of these goods. But I will want to focus on the PEVs. The PEV means post-exit verification. The cargo which pays taxes at the port of Mombasa, and if that cargo is selected for fiscal verification, the verification is deferred to be done at the border when the cargo is received at the border. It implies that the valuation of that cargo has not been concluded because we are pending the findings of the verification exercise in order to address the risks that sent that cargo for fiscal examination. Now, once that verification has been done at the border, the information is sent to DPC. I want to clarify that it's not about tallying of quantities, okay? When the verification is sent to DPC, we look at your declaration, we look at your documentation against now the findings of a verification officer. And we look at it from the point of the description of the cargo, the measurements of the cargo, the unit of measure that's pertinent for that cargo for us to be able to determine the correct value. So it's not just a copy and paste that when the VA has been pasted in the system, then DPC should simply release because the officer has said the quantity is tally. We have a duty to re-examine your declaration against the findings and the details of the verification report and the documents you availed to us together with the declaration that you made for us to be assured that the risks that made your consignment to be selected red have been addressed for us to release you. So, and for information of our clients who are listening to us, we have ensured in DPC that a PEV entry that fulfills all the requirements for clearance does not slip in DPC. Or the only entries that are delayed is when we see a departure or a full detail coming from the verification report that require us to ask you more questions through a query module. So once we query your PEV entry, then you have moved from PEV into the query module. And until we have concluded the query module and we have agreed, then that is when we shall be able to release your consignment. And this makes me to make an appeal out there, ladies and gentlemen, the clearing agent, our partners who are really key in this journey, please we appeal to you to always answer the queries in time. As I speak to you, I have up to 2,500 queries that have been raised and no response has been received for the last 6 months. Now, what should DPC do? We have asked you a question to clarify on the matter which is not clear on your declaration, and you are hibernating, not responding. You know, that is something which causes delays. When we ask you a question, give us a response so that we can progress the declaration to conclusion. So for the people who pay taxes at the port of Mombasa, I give you assurance there is no consignment that slips at DPC without an issue when it has come under PEV. Unless that consignment has been verified at 6 p.m. in the evening, that will need more time. That's when it will perhaps be able to cross over to the next day. It's only those PEVs that have been queried and we are yet to harmonize on the query and the issues we have identified for us to be able to release that consignment. So working it together, we will be able to make this even more efficient and reduce on the people who require verification and perhaps reduce on that profile so that we have few consignments going to physical verification, and then we will be able to support you do business much efficiently. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Mr. Esunget. And we are now coming to an end of our webinar. Kindly give us your last words. I will begin with you, Mr. Esunget. I first stay with you in half a minute. You give us your last words to the viewers.
Oh, thank you very much. Thank you again, Nicholas and everyone else. Thank you very much, Nicholas and everyone else who has been tuning and listening to us all this while. It has been a pleasure to interact with you as we start the new year. And as DPC, I promise you, the aspect of service delivery is key and the first thing on our agenda. And so I promise you that this start of the year and moving forward, we are putting in place measures to ensure you receive timely feedback from DPC for your consignments that you declare to us. And we are determined to ensure that you do more business, you cut on costs of doing business, and ideally, valuation of goods under IM7 is going to be a game changer in this journey. Let's partner together, let's journey together, let's support one another, and let's develop Uganda together. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Mr. Simon Esunget, the manager for the Document Processing Center. Thank you so much. And Mr. Uponja, you will give us your last words. In that 1 minute, you will use half of the minute to answer this question where someone is asking if they are given discounts when they are buying in bulk. Do you consider that as valuation? You can just give like 2 sentences on it, and then you give us your last words.
Thank you, Nicholas, and the viewers. Discount. The question is, does discount constitute customs value? Yes or no? That is the question from the client. Under WCO, instrument for valuation, discount may or may not be allowed as a part of customs value. When do we allow a discount on customs value, and when don't we allow? If we have quantifiable information that the discount is backed by some facts. One, quantity, that if I buy so much quantity, we shall give you discount. Or if you pay on a cash basis, we shall give you discount. If you pay this proportion, we shall give you a discount of maybe 5% or 2%. If this information is available to every taxpayer, to every client who is buying this good from that particular supplier, the discount will not be part of customs value. So that information should be objectively available to everyone, not only to a particular client. So if we have that information, the facts are there, it could be a clearance sales, we need to clear off the stock. That information is available to the public. Then we don't add the discount on customs value. Short of that, discount is added on customs value. My parting shot, thank you viewers for this interactive engagement, and we are ready to support each other. We request for documents from the client that are really not doubtable, so that we go on transaction value. We don't want to keep on delaying on issues of value. Give me this, give me this, give me this, so that we go on transaction value. So our appeal is, let's demand for the document from the client. The clearing agents have access to the taxpayers. It's your mandate to request for the genuine document from the client, so that these documents are validated by customs and transactions are clear. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Madam Fiona, your parting shot.
Thank you, Nicholas. Thank you, our viewers, for coming all the way with us. Three things I think I can mention as we close. One, we request and we insist that declarations be improved in as far as declaration, in as far as description, because we've really zeroed on that one. So we request our clients and our viewers, let's do as much as possible, especially those who are interacting with taxpayers directly, to pick documents from them and pick information that is important for declaration purposes. Please do as much as possible to make sure we can have accurate declarations to the greatest extent possible. Two, clearing in time. We request that you be available for us to clear you in time, whether it's for verification, whether it's for release, whether it's for any other process that we are going through as we manage cargo under the bonded warehouses. So please be available. Let's try to clear these goods on time and get them to our clients on time. And then thirdly, supporting this drive. It's very important that we support this drive that we are on. Let's have these goods valued. Let's store them when they are accurately valued and known, so that we can be able to get out of these warehouses when it's time to pay in as shortest time possible. And as warehousing, we shall support you entirely in the whole process. Feel free to contact us, whether our teams in the field or at headquarter office, so that we can be able to support you to do your business seamlessly and on time, because we believe that every minute counts and it will be able to reduce your costs, but of course get these goods into the market in the quickest time possible. Thank you again for listening to us and being part of us. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Once again, I want to thank our viewers who have been tuned in from the time we started. This has been Customs 101, and we've been handling valuation of imported cargo at IM7 regime. My name is Nicholas Aruho. I've been your host, and I've been hosting Mr. Esunget Simon, the manager for DPC, Madam Fiona Tubeine Nyamrunji, the manager for warehousing, and Mr. Uponja Emmanuel, the supervisor for DPC. Thank you so much for tuning in.